My son sent me a text at 6 in the morning. I was still in my robe, standing at the kitchen counter waiting for the coffee to finish. The phone buzzed against the tile, and I picked it up the way you pick up anything at that hour. Slow, not expecting much. The message was 4 lines. I read it twice. Dad, I need you to hear this from me before you hear it somewhere else. The wedding is going to be smaller than we planned. Diane and her family are flying in from Portland, and there won't be enough room at the venue. We're going to have to cut the guest list. I hope you understand. I set the phone face down on the counter. The coffee finished. I poured a cup. I stood there looking out at the backyard, at the oak tree I'd planted the year my son turned 8, at the tire swing that hadn't moved in 20 years. I drank the coffee slowly. Then I picked up the phone again and read it a 3rd time. He didn't say I wasn't invited. But he also didn't say I was. He said there wasn't enough room. He said he hoped I understood. My son was getting married in 6 weeks. I had been helping him pay for it since February. Let me back up. My name is Leonard. I'm 63 years old. I retired early from civil engineering. 31 years building bridges and overpasses and highway systems across 4 states. I have a house in Raleigh that I paid off 11 years ago. I drive a truck that's 8 years old because I've never seen the point of buying new when something still runs. I am not a complicated man. I have never asked for much. My son's name is Daniel. He's 34. He works in marketing out in Columbus, Ohio. We have always been close, or I thought we were. After his mother and I divorced, when he was 12, I made sure of that. Every weekend I could drive to get him, I drove. Every school play, every baseball game, every science fair, I showed up. That's what you do. He met Diane about 3 years ago. She's fine. I don't have a bad word to say about her. She's organized, she's driven, she has opinions about everything, and she loves my son. That last part is the only thing that matters, so I kept the rest to myself. Her family is from money, old money, the kind that doesn't need to talk about itself. Her father, Richard, owns a commercial real estate firm in Portland. Her mother, Gloria, has never in my presence picked up a check. They are the kind of people who smile warmly at you and make you feel, without saying a single word, that you're slightly out of place. I am a man who built overpasses for a living. I am a man who built overpasses for a living. I am, by their estimation, slightly out of place. When Daniel told me the wedding budget in February, I didn't flinch. He said they were looking at somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000. Diane's parents were contributing $20,000. He asked if I could help with the rest. I said yes. Of course I said yes. Of course I said yes. I set up a joint account. I put in $22,000. That was nearly 1/3 of my liquid savings. I told him it was a gift, not a loan. I told him I didn't want it back. I told him I just wanted to see him happy. He hugged me over the phone. I could hear it in his voice. That particular sound a grown child makes when they're grateful and relieved and trying not to show how much they needed the help. I thought that was the beginning of something. I did not know it was a transaction. In the weeks that followed, I noticed small things. Diane would send Daniel messages during our phone calls, and he would lose the thread of what we were talking about. Once I called to ask about the rehearsal dinner, and he mentioned, almost in passing, that Diane's parents had strong feelings about the venue. I asked what venue they were considering, and he gave me the name of a hotel I'd never heard of. I looked it up later. The ballroom alone cost $11,000 for the evening. I didn't say anything. It was his wedding. It was his money, some of it mine, but I had given it freely. I called again in April to ask about the guest list. I had 3 people I wanted to invite. My brother Roy from Charlotte, my old friend Marcus, who I've known since college, and my neighbor Shirley, who had watched Daniel grow up and still asked about him every time I ran into her at the hardware store. Daniel said he'd check with Diane. He never called back about it. I let it go. In May, I asked if he needed me to come up to Columbus to help with anything, moving furniture, setting up, whatever a father does in the weeks before his son's wedding. He said they had it handled. He said Diane's mother had organized everything. He said it in a way that made me feel I was offering to fix something that wasn't broken. I started noticing a pattern. When Daniel called, he was warm and easy. When Diane was nearby, he became careful, not cold, careful, like a man choosing his words with someone listening over his shoulder. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself I was one of those fathers who had trouble letting go. I told myself a lot of things. Then came the morning text. I didn't respond right away. I went for a walk instead. 3 miles around the neighborhood, the way I do every morning, past the elementary school and the church and the community garden where the retired teachers grow tomatoes in raised beds. I walked and I thought. He didn't say I wasn't invited, but here is what I knew. There were 140 people on the original guest list. The venue held 180. Diane's family from Portland was, by Daniel's own count, 11 people. 11 people do not require cutting your father from a guest list. When I got home, I called Daniel directly. He picked up on the second ring. "Dad, hey. I got your message," I said. "I have a few questions." There was a pause, the kind of pause that tells you the other person has been waiting for the call and dreading it at the same time. "Of course," he said. "What's up? How many people are you cutting from the list?" "Maybe 8 or 10. "And I'm one of them." Another pause. Longer this time. "Dad, it's not. It's complicated. Diane's family has some dynamics, and her dad specifically has a thing about, look, it's seating. It's a whole thing with the table arrangements." "Daniel," I said. I kept my voice level. I have been keeping my voice level my whole life. "Am I invited to your wedding or not?" He didn't answer immediately. That was my answer. "Her father," he finally said, "feels like it would be awkward. With you there. He has a whole speech planned, and he's very particular about the tone of the day." I let that sit for a moment. Richard felt it would be awkward. Richard, who had contributed $20,000 to the wedding, felt that my presence would disrupt the tone. Richard, who had never built a thing in his life, was concerned about tone. "I see," I said. "Dad, I'm sorry. I really am. We'll do a separate celebration, just you and me and Diane, after the honeymoon. I promise. I just need this day to go smoothly, you know. Diane is really stressed, and her dad is—" "How much?" I said. "Have you spent from the account so far?" A shorter pause this time. More careful. "About 14,000. "Okay," I said. "I'll talk to you later, Daniel." I hung up. I sat in my armchair in the living room for a while. The house was quiet. It's always quiet. It's always quiet. I've lived alone since 2009, and I've made my peace with the quiet. But that morning, it had a different quality. The kind of quiet that arrives after something shifts, and you know it isn't going back. I thought about a lot of things sitting there. I thought about the drive to Columbus in the winter of 2019, when Daniel called me at 11 at night because he'd gotten into a car accident and didn't want to call his mother and worry her. I drove 4.5 hours in the snow. I didn't think about it. I just got in the truck. I thought about the year he was 26 and lost his job, and I sent him $3,000 and told him not to mention it to anyone. I told him it was between us. I thought about every birthday, every Christmas, every Sunday phone call for 22 years since the divorce. I had never missed a single one. I thought about $22,000. And then I stopped thinking and started doing what engineers do. I assessed the structure. I identified what was load-bearing and what was not. I made a decision. I called my bank first. The joint account I'd set up was in both our names, which meant I had equal access. The remaining balance was $8,400. I transferred it back to my personal account, not out of anger. Just because money given in love does not obligate me to fund my own exclusion. Then I called my attorney, a woman named Patricia who handled my affairs for years, a sharp woman who doesn't waste words. I told her the situation. I asked what I needed to do to update my estate documents. "Everything?" she asked. "Everything?" she asked. "Everything," I said. She told me to come in Thursday. I said I'd be there. Then I called my brother Roy in Charlotte. I told him we weren't going to Columbus in June. He asked why. I gave him the short version. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said, "Leonard, I'm sorry." Just that. Roy has always known what to say and what not to. Then I called Marcus. Same story. Marcus, who is not the quiet type, had quite a bit more to say about it, most of which I'll leave out. But it helped to hear. Then I sat down and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened my laptop and I looked at a few things. Flights to Montana, where I'd always wanted to spend real time. A fishing charter on the Yellowstone River that Roy and I had talked about for years and never booked. A cabin rental outside Bozeman, 2 weeks late June. The wedding was June 14th. The cabin was available June 10th through the 24th. I booked it. I called Roy back and told him to clear his calendar. He laughed. Not a funny laugh, a relieved one. Like I'd said something he'd been waiting to hear. Daniel called me 4 days later. He'd noticed the transfer. "Dad," he said, and his voice had a new quality in it that I hadn't heard in a long time. It took me a moment to place it. Then I recognized it. It was the voice of a boy who had done something wrong and knew it. "I see you moved the money," he said. "I did." Can we talk about that?" "We can talk," I said. "I'm not sure what there is to resolve, but I'm willing to have the conversation." He was quiet for a moment. Then Diane's father asked about the contribution. He's wondering if there's going to be a shortfall. There it was. I had been, for a moment, hoping this call was about something else, some realization on Daniel's part, some clarity. But no, it was about the shortfall. "Richard," I said, "is a man who runs a commercial real estate firm in Portland. I imagine he can cover a shortfall." "Dad, it's not that simple." "Daniel, you called me at 6 in the morning to tell me, as gently as you could manage, that I wasn't welcome at your wedding because your future father-in-law finds me inconvenient. I withdrew my contribution. I don't think you need me to explain the connection." Silence. "I didn't say you weren't welcome. What would you call it?" More silence. The longest of the conversation. Finally he said, "I handled it wrong. I know that." "Yes," I said, "you did." "I'm sorry, Dad." I let that breathe for a moment. I believed him. I want to be clear about that. I believed he was sorry. But sorry is a word, and words are the beginning of something, not the end of it. I had raised him to understand the difference. "I need some time," I said. "I'm going to Montana with your uncle in June. When I get back, if you want to have a real conversation about all of this, I'll be here. The wedding is in June. I know when the wedding is." Another pause. Then, very quietly, "You really not coming?" "Daniel," I said, "I was not invited." "That was your decision. You made it, and I respect that you have the right to make it. But decisions go in both directions." He didn't have an answer for that. We said goodbye. I hung up. I sat for a while in the quiet of my house, and I looked out at the backyard and the oak tree and the still tire swing, and I felt not angry, something more like settled. The way a structure feels when you've removed the parts that weren't holding anything up, and what remains is sound. I went to see Patricia on Thursday. We updated everything, not out of punishment. I want to be precise about this. I did not do it to hurt my son. I did it because a man in his 60s, living alone with a paid-off house and a third of his savings just redirected, needs his affairs in order. I did it because clarity is a kindness, sometimes more to yourself than anyone else. Patricia asked me how I was doing. I told her I was fine. She gave me the look attorneys give you when they know better but have the manners not to push. Roy and I flew into Bozeman on June 10th. We drove out to the cabin in a rental truck, past rangeland and horses and mountains that made everything else seem like it was the right size for the first time in years. We fished the Yellowstone 2 mornings in a row. Roy caught more than I did and didn't let me forget it. We cooked in the cabin at night and talked the way we hadn't talked since we were young men. About our father, about growing up in Greensboro, about all the things that happened and the things that didn't. I did not check my phone very often. When I did, there were no messages from Daniel for the first 4 days. On June 14th, his wedding day, he sent a text at noon. "I love you, Dad. I'm sorry it turned out this way. I'll call when we're back from the honeymoon." I read it sitting on the porch of the cabin with a cup of coffee, looking out at the mountains. The sky was the particular blue that only exists in Montana, the kind that doesn't try to prove anything. I wrote back, "I love you too. Congratulations." I meant both things. He called me 6 weeks later when they were back from Cabo. Diane was in the room. I could tell by the way he spoke, measured and slightly formal. He thanked me for the congratulations text. He said the wedding was beautiful. He said Diane's father had given a long speech. I said that sounded nice. Then there was a part of the conversation where Diane wasn't in the room, because I heard a door close and his voice changed, became more like itself. "Dad," he said, "I've been thinking about this a lot. Okay, I think I made a choice, and I made it for the wrong reasons. And I think I've known that since the morning you called me and asked me directly and I couldn't give you a straight answer." I didn't say anything. I let him keep going. Diane's dad has a way of making things feel like his preferences are just the way things are. And I let that happen. I let it happen with you, which is the part I can't stop thinking about. I thought about what to say for a moment. Then I said, "Daniel, you're 34 years old. You're starting a marriage. Your job isn't to manage me, it's to build something with her. But you're also going to have to decide over the years what you're willing to set aside and for whose benefit. That's a line only you can draw." "I know," he said. "I know. I'm not waiting for an apology," I told him. "I already have one. What I'm looking for when you're ready is just the ordinary stuff. Sunday calls, visits when you're in town, the normal things." "Yeah," he said. His voice had that sound again, the one from February, the grateful and relieved one. "Yeah, I can do that." "Good," I said. My brother asked me on the last night in Montana, sitting on the porch with 2 glasses of bourbon, whether I was really okay. I thought about it honestly before I answered. The thing about being 63 is that you have a long enough view to see patterns. You have seen things begin and end and begin again in different forms. You know that the people you love are capable of disappointing you, and that this does not cancel out the love, any more than a crack in a bridge means the bridge is useless. You learn to assess. You learn to know what needs repair and what just needs time. I told Roy I was okay. He said, "You sure? Because the cabin's available again in September." I laughed. "A real one." "Book it," I said. He did. There is something I want to say to anyone listening who has been in a version of this. I did not take the money back to punish my son. I did not update my papers to send a message. I did not go to Montana to make a point. I did those things because when someone shows you the terms of a relationship, even someone you love, even your own child, it is not weakness to read what's written there. It is not cruelty to respond accordingly. I am a man who built things for 31 years. I know what holds weight and what doesn't. I know that the structure matters more than how it looks from the outside. My son called last Sunday. He and Diane are thinking about buying a house in Columbus. He asked for my opinion on a few things: foundation, neighborhood, what to look for in an inspection. I told him what I knew. He listened. Diane got on the phone and thanked me. She was warmer than she'd ever been. I don't know what that means exactly, and I'm not in the business of overanalyzing things. What I know is this. "Sunday," he called. "Sunday," I answered. "That's enough for now. Some things you have to let settle like concrete. You don't test it too early. You give it the time it needs. And then, if the work was done right, you put weight on it and you see what holds." So far, it's holding. That's all you can ever really ask for. If something in this story reached you, if you've been in a place where love and money and family got tangled up in ways you didn't choose, leave a comment below. I'd like to hear from you. Hit like if this was worth your time and share it with someone who might need it. I'm Uncle Leonard, and I'll see you next time.